Okay, now what we can notice, something very important in helping us to appreciate solving quadratic equation by factorization. If we have two numbers, let's say 5, and we're going to multiply it by m, and the solution to that is equal to 0. What value is m? Well, 5 can only multiply by one number to give us 0, and that is 0. So m will have to be 0. What about if we multiply in another number, let's call it n, by 3, and the solution is 0. What does that tell us about n? Yes, n will have to be 0. So if we're multiplying two numbers, let's say m and another number, n, and the solution is 0 or the product is 0, then either one of these two numbers must be 0. Or both of them could be 0 as well, because 0 times 0 is 0. So either one of them is 0 or both are zeros, and the product will be 0. Now this fact will help us to appreciate solving quadratic equation when we set it equal to 0. Okay, so we're solving quadratic equations by factorization. And the first example we're looking at, you will notice that we have two binomials that produce 0. Now recall what we looked at the last time. We're multiplying two numbers and the product gives us 0. That means one of them must be 0. Now the left hand side is an equation, and the left hand side is actually a quadratic that has been factorized. And because it's factorized, we have two factors multiplying to give us 0. That means one of them must be 0. So this is how we go about working the solution. Since both of them produce 0, that means one of them must be 0. So we're going to write either subtract 7 from both sides, divide both sides by 2, and that's the solution for the first part. Or this one could be the one that is 0, so we write or. And then we solve by adding 3 to both sides. And so those are the two solutions. Either negative 7 over 2 or 3. For the next one, we have x squared minus 8x equals 0. Now this one has not been factorized, but it's equal to 0. That's the quadratic equation. So what we can do is to bring it as factors by factorizing the left hand side. Common factor there is x. Okay, now we have two factors here, a term and a binomial. We multiply them, we get 0, so one of them must be 0. We're not certain, so we're going to write either x is equal to 0, which is this one, or the next one, which is x minus 8 equals 0. For this one, we need to finish it off to find the value of x, add 8 to both sides. We have x equal 8. So those two solutions we have there are x equal to 0 or x equal to 8. And if you should plug the value in, plug 0 in this, we'll end up with 0. If you plug the value of 8 in this, we'll also end up with 0. Okay, let's look at the others. Now we have 2x squared minus 50 equals 0. We would not be able to solve for x just like that. What is the value of x that will make this equation 0? The good idea is that we can factorize this to two factors that multiply to give us 0, so we can solve for x. Alright, so let's write it back. Now recognizing that we have common factors in the entire expression, so we just factorize using the highest common factor of 2, that is in both terms. Now this can be factorized further. This is the difference of two squares. So this can be written as so 2 times a number times another number gives us 0. So we know that one of these must be 0. 2 times, if this is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, times this number gives us 0. If this one is 0, then 0 times this number is 0, times this number is 0. So one of these two must be 0. Or both of them could be 0. So, when x plus 5 is equal to 0, subtracting 5 from both sides, we have x must be negative 5. If you put negative 5 into this equation, where x is, then we'll get 0. Negative 5 plus 5, that's 0. And negative 5 minus 5, that's negative 10. And so 2 times 0 times negative 10 will also surely be 0. And this one could also be 0. So we're going to write. And then we can finish it off by adding 5 to both sides. And so the two solutions that we have there are negative 5 and positive 5. We could write the solution as a solution set. Or we could even write it like this. X equal plus or minus 5. These are the two solutions. Number 4. We have a quadratic equation. The highest power is a square, and so it's a quadratic. We have a linear, and we have a constant. Now remember, to solve a quadratic, it must be equal to 0, which is the general form, being equal to 0. And so what we're going to do is to remove this 10 by subtracting it from both sides. So we have x squared. Let's write the equation given. Subtracting 10 from both sides. We could do it in our minds, or we could do it, show it that we're actually subtracting 10. Okay. Okay, so we have x squared plus 3x equal 10. We subtract 10 from this side, as you note here. We'll subtract 10 from this side, as you note here. This could actually be done in our minds, and we'll end up with 0. And we'll write the left hand side. These are all unlike terms, and therefore we have to leave them as they are. Cannot be simplified. Now what we need to do is to factorize this, the left hand side. It's a quadratic trinomial. Multiplying first by the last, we end up with, let's do some side work. First by the last give us negative 10x squared. Find factors, the pair factors of negative 10x squared, which will give us 3x when we add them. 1 and 10 would not work, so it has to be 2 and 5. 2 5s 10. Which one would make positive would be the 5, because that's the biggest one. And this one will make negative. Multiplying these two, negative 10x squared, and when we add them, we'll get 3x. When we add negative 2x to positive 5x, we get 3x. So, what we're going to do, we're going to split the middle term into those two parts. Let's write back the first term, split this part. Factorizing the first part, x into x squared goes x times, x into 5x goes 5 times. I'm going to put the same thing back here. And 2 times x gives us 2x. But we want negative, so we'll make this 2 negative. Negative 2 times 10 as well will give us negative 10. If you use distributive law to double check. Alright, we need to factorize this left hand side. What's common is x plus 2. So we take it out. I'm sorry, x plus 5 is common. And then we're going to divide this part by x plus 5. And so if we have x times x plus 5 divided by x plus 5, these two will cancel each other, leaving us with x. If we divide this part by x plus 5, the x plus 5 will cancel itself and give us negative 2. And some person just simply say, put the x and the negative 2 in bracket. But we just want to understand what we're doing. If you notice, we have the positive 5 and the negative 2 there. So we could have actually skipped this step once we find the two factors that would work for the middle term. But that will only work when the number before x squared is actually 1. If it's less than 1 or more than 1, it will not work to just put them in the bracket. Okay, next step. So we know two numbers or two factors, in this case two binomials, multiplied together to give us 0, then either one is 0. So we're going to put either x plus 5 equals 0. Subtracting 5 from both sides, we end up with negative 5. Or x minus 2, which is the next one, equals 0. Adding 2 to both sides. Let's show how we add this. Add 2 to this side, add 2 to this side. Just showing it here, but we could have done it in our minds. These two will cancel, give us x, and we end up with 2. So the two solutions, x equal negative 5 or x equal 2. Okay, so we're looking at the last one. Now we have 15x squared minus 8 equal 14x. It's a quadratic equation. Highest power is a square. Now we cannot solve a quadratic equation unless it's equal to 0. So we need to remove the 14x from this side. But because it's an equation, you got to do that to both sides. Let's rewrite. Alright, so now to subtract from both sides, we end up with this. Subtracting the 14x gives us 0, and subtracting it from this side, we end up with minus 14x, and put back the minus 8. Now we have to make sure it's in order, powers, so the x squared term, and the linear term, and then a constant term afterwards. Now this looks familiar, quadratic. Multiply first by the last will give us negative 120 x squared. The two factors that will give us the middle term would be 6 and 20. 6 times 20 give us 120. The difference between them will give us 14. Now this one will make the negative and this one the positive. Why? The middle term, the sign of middle term must go on the bigger one. Okay, so let's continue. 15x squared plus 6x, no, this has to be x, minus 20x minus 8 equals 0. Okay, so ensure that you know that these must be x terms. Alright, factorize. Two factors when multiply give us 0. One of them must be 0, or both of them could be 0. So we write either Now it's a linear equation, so we can solve for x. Subtracting 2 from both sides. Dividing both sides by 5. So that's the first solution. Or